before I get into that, let's talk a little bit more. Okay, we got the techniques now. We understand the importance of having that clarity and taking that time to visualize. And I do recommend taking a couple times a day that you can read this, because basically what we're doing, we're building our mental muscles. We're reconditioning ourselves. We are retraining ourselves. So I kind of look at it like working out physically. I can go to the gym for a day, I can give it all I've got, I can pour myself into it, and I can get like a little bit of results that'll last for a moment, and then I could go back to life how I was living it, and within about, 48 hours probably, most of those results have kind of found their way back out again. Or I could go to the gym consistently, day after day after day after day, and I can start to build these muscles. And as I start to build these muscles, I start to feel stronger physically, but I also start to mentally feel stronger. I start to feel more capable. I start to feel, my cardio is getting better, my strength's getting better. I can go longer on the treadmill, I can lift heavier weights, I can start to see these visible changes. And we could do that, I could do that for 30 days, and then I could go back to my regular life, and again, all those changes are just going to dwindle back away again. It's something that you have to show up consistently all the time. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's what I remember hearing that, because I grew up doing gymnastics. You don't use it, you lose it, and that's absolutely true. If you don't do push-ups every single day, you're not going to be able to do push-ups every single day. If you don't bend over and touch your toes every day, you're going to lose that flexibility, and you're not going to be able to do it. The mind is no different. And the thing is that our mind's been running on autopilot. I look at it this way. Our mind is a device to keep us alive until we wake up and start taking responsibility of our own life. So it's to keep you alive. It'll get you from the bed to the job, back to the bed, back to the job, back to the bed, back to the job. But it's not going to get you to do those kind of daring things that are outside of that scope until you practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it. So I started looking at it as reconditioning my mentality. It's a mental workout. It's a mental muscle that I'm looking to strengthen. And that's where these little tips and techniques come into play. Because eventually, I believe, I will have that mental muscle so exercised that I can think about it and I'll turn around and it will start to create my life. And I believe this to be true. And actually, I have found this to be true in a lot of different little small areas where I'm not greatly emotionally attached. I'll think of something, well, it would be really neat if I had this, and then I'll walk into a store and there it is. Or there'll just be like a small thing. And I know one example that's used a lot, like in the movies, The Secret and different law of attraction workshops is, like manifesting a parking spot. Because you're not attached to actually having that parking spot, it's pretty easy to just visualize it, believe it's going to be there, and bam, it's there. But when you get into the kind of stuff that we're talking about today, when we're talking about reconditioning your whole life, it's going to take lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. And I like these tools because they're here for me to use. I can reach into my toolbox and pull them out anytime that I'm starting to struggle until it becomes my second nature. Which again, as I've said in previous workshops, I believe it's really our first nature is this abundance and happiness and fulfillment. And our second nature is the one that our personality has created, our ego has created, who we think, our survival self, who we think we have to be to survive. So right now, I'm defaulting to what my survival self thinks that I need to do, which is seek cover and preserve life. And what I want to do is shift back into that first nature, this amazing, limitless potential being that I am. And that's what I want to do. So that's why I love these tools. At any time that I'm feeling mental confusion and I'm getting wrapped up in trying to figure out how things are going to work, or getting frustrated because it's not happening fast enough or on the time frame that my mind said that it needed to be on, I could pull out these tools and I could say, okay, what do I believe to be true? Or what do I know to be true? And what feedback is life giving me? And let me write out some visualizations. And how do I really feel about these things? And I can start to implement these tools so I can continue to build these muscles. So the cool thing about writing out these vision statements is that 80% of what you write down comes true. Now, 80% of what you write down comes true regardless if you ever read it again. And I have known numerous people, and myself included, that would write down something, put it away, 10 years later, run across it, open it up, and read it, and be like, well, I'll be darned. I'll be darned if not, half, 80% of this has actually come true. And that's from writing it down once and never looking at it again. So imagine how much quicker we could build that mental muscle if we're reading it twice a day, 3 times a day, taking 15 minutes to really visualize, taking that time to be quiet, taking that time to say, you know what, mind, you're off duty. Heart, it's your time to step up, and let's just make our hearts sing. So really be patient and be kind and be loving to yourself as well. Because you wouldn't walk into a gym on the very first day and expect to be able to do the power lifters workouts. So why would you step into life after reading one book, attending one workshop, seeing one movie, and expect your life to change? You're having to recondition and work through years of functioning differently. Same thing at a gym. You are trying to rebuild on years of what you've been doing. You're moving 15 years of getting up and down off the couch to, into a life of really building strength and building momentum and building up your cardio. So why is it that we feel that it should happen quicker and not fast enough? That's absolutely a mechanism of the mind. The mind is never satisfied. It's never good enough. It's never fast enough. It's never inexpensive enough. It's never enough. That's how the mind works. Why? Because if it was enough, you'd stop moving. And if you're not moving, we can't ensure life. So the mind's always going to say, look over there, look over there, look over there, look over there, and it's going to keep you propelling and moving forward. Again, that mind is like that default mechanism. It's that autopilot that gets you to life until you start to create your own reality. It's designed to keep you alive and keep you moving forward. And if you are satisfied with that first job, you're not ever going to progress. And if you're satisfied with being single, you're never going to procreate. See what I'm saying? It's just designed to keep us moving forward as a society, as a species, and to ensure the survival of the whole species. Well, once you start to become aware of the mind and aware of what your own potential is, then you can start to override that. But remember, I started doing this, really implementing it hardcore. I would say probably the most pivotal stuff started happening for me about 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, I was still building on for about 4 years of kind of dabbling and being interested in this kind of stuff. So let's say that I started it at age 20, which I so did not, but let's just say I started at age 20. We're talking 20 years of living life differently. So why would I think within 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years, I'm going to be where I was, where it took me 20 years to get? So there's a lot of undoing and unconditioning, and there's a lot of layers that got to be peeled back, and there's a lot of truths that I've had to face. And each thing has brought me to the next level, which has brought me to the next level, which has brought me to the next level. And the next truth revealed the next lie that I was living. And revealing that lie opened up the next truth. And it's just like this Pandora's box. And it's peeling back, excuse me, one of my mentors says that life is like an onion. You peel back the layers and every once in a while you cry. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. It's like, now, before I'd have this major breakthrough and I'd be like, wow, this is huge. This is great. I'm on my way. I've got it all figured out. And then bam, I'd hit the next roadblock and it'd be like, oh, it'd be such a blow to my ego and my pride. And I'd feel myself stumbling backwards. And it's like, wow, once I got over that obstacle, this whole other world opened up, and I'd be like, okay, this is it. And then another world would open up, and another world. And now when I have those profound revelations and those whole life-shaking, shifting flip-arounds, now it's like, okay, now I just know that there's another one coming and another one coming. So that's just all part of the journey. And it took that 20 years of experiencing life to give me the experience that I needed, that I would start seeking out something different. And now as I start to, lean into this and live my life this way, I want more of the results that I've been getting. So I'm going to lean into it more and more and more. And now you don't have to pry me out of bed to go work out, because I want to work out. I want to feel healthy. I feel that being healthy is how I was truly meant to be. So whenever I am at my fittest, when I am at my healthiest, I feel my most authentic self. Most true self. I feel kind of like the physical layers that extra weight had on me were physical layers that were keeping me from my true self. So knowing that the mind is never satisfied, knowing that the mind's always going to be looking for that next thing, knowing that it's never going to be quick enough, because again, the mind is not in charge. We can say, oh, I need to be here in 30 days. But if really being there in 30 days isn't what's best for my ultimate good, or for the ultimate good of the world as a whole, then it's going to happen on the universe's time. It's going to happen on God's time. It's not going to happen in my mind's time. But if I get started on something and I think this should only take me 30 days, and at day 60, I'm like, this is just ridiculous, that's it, I'm quitting. What if it was day 61 that I was going to have the experience that I needed to undo it all, or to really get to that next spot? When I stop making now wrong, when I stopped resisting where I was on my journey, or any time, because it still comes up for me, I'm still building my muscles too. I'm still reconditioning myself as well. But now I've built up so much proof and so much evidence that it's possible that now I can do it a lot quicker than what I would do before. And that's where all these little tools have really helped me. So it's not like I just woke up one morning and was like, oh, now I get it and I can start doing it. It was like, no, I had to experience the opposite, retrieve the new information, bring it to the forefront, figure out all these little tips and tricks to get my mind out of the way. But I can remember, or even if you think back to earlier when I was talking about what we resist persists, what we embrace transforms. And that was one of the first things that I did, was started clearing up the resistance in my life and questioning the resistance that I had in my life. Well, making now wrong is a resistance to now. And reminding myself that the mind is never satisfied. The mind's always going to be looking for more. The mind's never going to have it. Nothing's ever going to happen fast enough for the mind. Then I can stop listening to my mind that's saying, you should have been further along by now, or you're never going to make it. And I can stop making now wrong. I can embrace now for what it is. I can take a step out of now and look back in to say, okay, if where I'm at right now is exactly perfect, then what's perfect about right now? And just trust, just know that if I wasn't supposed to be here right now, simply put, I wouldn't be here right now. By saying that the universe is wrong, or that God's wrong for having things be exactly how they are right now, I'm going against my core belief, my foundation in this divine perfection that I'm buying into. So I realize I just can't have it both ways. Either I believe that everything's perfect, or I don't. And I can't believe that everything's perfect except for this thing is wrong, and I should be further along, and this should be happening differently. So for me, it was just deciding to start living my life 100% leaning into my faith instead of holding on to these fears. Because I had lived 30 years holding on to these fears, making these fear-based decisions, looking for that safety net, making sure it was safe before I took that first step, trying to figure it all out in my mind. And I had to just say, okay, that's it. Mind, you're off duty. Or better yet, if you're going to be seeking out all this stuff to back up my belief system, then you're going to start seeking out that to back up my new belief system. So instead of finding all the reasons that right now is wrong, your job now is to find all the reasons why right now is right. Since I don't know what the future holds, since I don't know that, then instead of making up all these stories about why what I'm doing now is going to negatively affect my future, I'm going to start making up stories over why everything right now is perfect for my next step in my future. And a lot of things, again, use your own memories, use your own past experience. When I think back to my past and I thought that something should have gone one way, or at the time that something happened, it was complete devastation and total heartache, and why did this happen? It's so unfair. And then years later I can look back and say that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So since I could do that with my past, chances are I can do that with right now. Chances are 5 years from now I can look back and say, gosh, I can't believe that I spent all that time making right now wrong, because if I hadn't been here doing this now, then I wouldn't have gotten to this great place that I'm going to. It's the same thing, and I know the same thing even when I was learning these principles. You know, when I started getting these little gaps filled in for me, I was like, gosh, if I'd only known this 10 years ago when I first started, imagine how far I'd be. That's just a fantasy, and it's just a fantasy that's going to make me miserable, so I had to just let it go. And every time that I had that little creeping, like, oh, those woulda, coulda, shouldas, whenever that kind of stuff would start creeping in, or when it does start to creep in now, I remind myself that's just a fantasy. It's just an illusion. And that belief that things should have been different is causing me to suffer right now. And I don't want to suffer right now. And since I can't prove that these things would have happened any differently had things been different, then what's the point of holding on to those non-serving stories? Stories that we make up in our mind will determine if we're blissful or if we're suffering. So if you don't like what you're seeing around you, change the story of what you're telling yourself about it. So if right now is wrong because you should be further along, because, you know, I'm 32 years old and I should be here in my life by the time I'm 32, it's just a fantasy. It is an absolute fantasy. And I had to learn how to just let that go. And this little tool right here really, really served me. I found that I didn't like to look at that best case scenario because I didn't have proof that it was going to happen. I didn't have proof that everything was going to fall into place. I didn't have proof that what I wanted was going to come true. And then I realized I don't have proof that it's not. Just as much as I don't see the future and everything lining up, I can't see the future and everything not lining up. So since I don't have proof that it is going to happen or that it's not going to happen, and the reason that I'm doubting its possibility is because I don't have proof that it's going to happen. Well, if I'm going to doubt, again, this is a little trick I play with my mind. If my mind's going to doubt, then I'll just get it doubting that it's not possible. So if I don't have proof that it's going to happen, I also don't have proof that it's not going to happen. So if I'm going to be sending my energy into one of these two scenarios, I had to look at which one serves me. Does it serve me to think that that it's not possible because I don't have any proof? No, not so much. Does it serve me to believe that it's still possible even though I don't have proof? Yeah, it does. It really serves me to buy into the fact that I don't have proof that it's not going to work. In fact, not only do I not have proof that it's not going to work, but I also have a lot of really successful people who are either personally involved in my life, or have written books, or done audio trainings or workshops that I've attended that have told me that this is more truthful than this other story. So since they know all of this and they're living the life that I want, and they're buying into this while I believe that, there's no proof that it's not possible, that I just kind of shifted, that little 6 inches, I just shifted my vision. And I stopped making now wrong. I understood that it's never going to be fast enough, it's never going to be good enough, it's never going to happen quick enough. It's just not going to, because that's not how the mind works. But when I could surrender what my mind was telling me, and I could really build that faith, and I could build that belief in myself, and I can build that trust that it all has its perfect timing, then even in those moments where I don't show up for myself, even in those moments where I don't make the choice that best serves my ultimate outcome, then I can be at peace with it and I can let it go. And I can trust if I did not make the decision to make the choice that leads to my ultimate outcome in that moment, if I didn't do it, instead of holding on to that and making myself wrong and beating myself over the head, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You should be getting this by now. Instead of that, I would say, you know what? If I didn't do it in that moment, there was a reason why I wasn't supposed to do it in that moment. And even though I may or may not ever see why, I'm just going to trust the perfection. I can let it go. I can, instead of resisting it, I can embrace it, I can accept it, and I can embrace it, and I can transform it into something that serves me instead of something that's not. So that's where that clarity really comes into help too, because with that clarity, by getting that crystal clear vision on where I'm going, then when I'm presented with a scenario in the moment, so I want to be here, but I'm presented with something right now, instead of defaulting to what I would normally do and keep creating my past, I can choose in that moment, okay, what choice is going to best serve my ultimate goal? Not what do I feel most comfortable with right now? What is easiest for me right now? What is my first inclination right now? It's getting past those things, those defaults, those autopilots, and getting into what choice is really going to serve me. So if my ultimate goal is to be really fit and healthy, and chocolate cake appears, I could say to myself, okay, eating it would be easy. Eating it's going to match up to the cravings that I have. Eating it's going to be easy now. But do I want to serve right now, or do I want to serve where I'm going? And then it allowed me to stop looking at things as, oh, I can't have that chocolate cake. I'm not allowed to have that chocolate cake. That chocolate cake is bad. To, I am not interested in that chocolate cake because that chocolate cake does not serve where I'm going in the long run. So just even having the ability to take that pause and choose a response instead of just reacting to the moment. That clarity, that vision, if I see that chocolate cake and immediately pops up, where I'm at right now, and immediately pops up where I want to be, if I have all of this amazing feel good, I want it, got to have it emotion around where I want to be, then that chocolate cake, it's just chocolate cake. Let me get to where I'm going, then we can talk about the chocolate cake. So then it allows me to again, it's just another way to increase my awareness so that I can make a different choice that's going to lead to a different outcome instead of just by default recreating the same scenario over and over and over again. So I can do this with anything. I can do this with my business and where I want my business to be. I can do it with my finances and where I want my finances to be. In the past, I'll just buy something that I see, that I like, that I think that I want or that I need. So I would just do the impulsive buying and I'll worry about the money later. Well, now, because I'm working on straightening out my finances, instead I can really evaluate, okay, this is a really cool thing. It's a good price. It is something that can help me out. Is this something that is really going to serve that ultimate outcome, or is it just going to make my life a little bit easier right now? And then I'm able to kind of weigh it out and make different choices. Because a lot of the choices that I was making in my finances, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I don't care what we're talking about. You can insert finances. You can insert a relationship. You can insert weight. You can insert whatever you want. It all comes down to the same exact thing. Because you remember how I said like earlier, one of my mentors says how we do one thing is how we do everything. It's the truth. It's the absolute truth that I know it to be the truth. So when I was looking, I never made choices financially, in my eating habits, in my relationships. I never made choices that I didn't feel 100% justified in making. I felt justified in the decisions that I was making, or else I would not have done them. I wouldn't have made that choice if I didn't feel like I could rationalize it, that I could make it make sense to me. Well, of course I should go to this training on the other side of the country and spend $500, $600, $700 because that's what's going to help me to learn what I need to learn to get to where I'm going to go. So to me, I felt totally justified even if I didn't have the cash to pay for the trip. well, yeah, I know I'm trying to get out of debt, but this is something that I need to do. I feel justified in doing it. And when I started to realize, when I started to question my own justifications, when I would say, okay, ultimately, I'm trying to save money. This scenario doesn't make me save money. So instead of justifying it and rationalize it, I started to question my justifications and my rationalization. And I found that there were some truths lying underneath that I was just stepping right over. And that it was causing me, subconsciously, I didn't realize that the justifications and truth are two different things. I thought it was kind of the same thing. So now I take every scenario and I kind of run it down my little hit list of what do I know to be true, and what is my heart really telling me? What is the essence of this training experience, more so than the physical, paying of money and getting on an airplane and the whole travel thing? I could do that same little rundown that I did earlier about getting clear about what I wanted. I could use that in the moment. And instead of making that decision, it's kind of like the same stuff I remember hearing, it's like, take a deep breath and count to 10, or walk away and give it 5 minutes and then come back and revisit it. Those kind of techniques they're brilliant. They're really, really brilliant, because I can think about how many times in the moment I felt like, yes, this is the answer. And then a week later, like, what was I thinking? Goodness gracious, if I had just waited 24 hours, I would have seen things totally different. So being able to take that pause and really take a look at what is my ultimate goal? Where is it that I'm going? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? I personally, I want to change the world. I want to have a world impact to better people's lives. I don't know where that came from. It just hit me one day. It's what I want to do. I want to change the world one life at a time. And if I jump to, well, how am I going to do that? Of course, my mind could think of different ways of, well, I could be on Oprah, and then that'll help me to affect the world. My mind's going to try to think of all the hows to do it, but I know better. I know not to listen to the mind, and I know that the how will take care of itself, and it's just for me to show up and be and do that which I want to see come into my life.